It's time to get in and talk fantasy focus, your do not draft list for this year. Now these are going to be players that we've already highlighted. Your studs. We've already highlighted some underrated guys that you're going to buy low on. We've already talked about the players that have changed teams. Well, now it's time for the do not draft list. Well, we're going to dive into all the players that maybe you should think twice about drafting this year because of one factor or another. Now, we're going to continue this coverage leading all the way up to the NFL season, so make sure you guys stay tuned. I need all of you guys to hit that follow button so you guys get the notifications every time we are live. It's every Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Wednesday and Sundays are our main NFL and news days. We do a little baseball on Thursdays, but as we get closer to the NFL season, we might be mixing in a little bit more on Thursdays, mixing it up a little bit to have some more coverage on the NFL. So that could be on the radar as well. We know you guys want to talk football, and that's what we're going to try to do. So that being said, let's dive into our fantasy focus do not draft list, and we're going to kind of go through Now, again, the disclaimer here on this draft list, just because they're on this do not draft list doesn't mean if you see one of these guys like in the second to last round of your draft for whatever reason, or like going super far down in your draft that they shouldn't typically be, then you can take a shot at some of these guys. If I see Jordan Addison here on my list on the graphic here, if he's there in like the late rounds of your draft, yeah, take him. This doesn't mean don't have him on your roster. This just means don't over commit on these guys unless it's a good value for you. So that being said, let's talk about Jordan Addison. We'll just go right off the bat, guys. And I got Doc in the back. You're going to be dropping some knowledge as well. Scotty, you're going to be talking about some guys as well. But Jordan Addison for the Minnesota Vikings is one of the guys on my list. Obviously, we have the downgrade from Kirk Cousins, and now you're either going to be working with either J.J. McCarthy or Sam Darnold. Both, again, we talked about the Falcons having one of the best upgrade at quarterback in the NFL. Well, the Vikings probably had one of the biggest downgrades. So regardless of who's starting, I think there might be some questions about whether or not the ball's going to be moving around as effectively as it normally had with Kirk Cousins. They might have more of a balanced offense as opposed to pass heavy, which they've been doing in the past. So that could, take a little step back. And then even Jordan Addison too, even last year, even going into some of his play, a lot of his best weeks were when Jefferson was out of the lineup. And Jefferson, as long as he's healthy, there's going to be a lot of targets going his way. So I'm kind of down on Jordan Addison here, guys. A little lower on him that I probably think a lot of people might be overdrafting him potentially. I see him here, at least on the ESPN rankings. Where do we have him at? I think he's a little bit further down on the list. I'm missing him. 42, wide receiver 42, projected around 190. Last year he was at 221 when it comes to fantasy points. So, yeah, guys, thoughts on Jordan Addison?
I feel like I feel like everyone's just assuming the drop off for the offense in Minnesota is going to be so steep. And listen, let's keep in mind, Kirk Cousins missed a lot of games last year too, and they were still putting up some numbers with no quarterback. Now, is it going to be J.J. McCarthy right out of the gate? I've seen clips of J.J. McCarthy just today, Chris, where someone's hyping him as the next big thing, Chris. I can't say who they compared him to because that's absurd.
Man who shall not be named.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to speak on that person's name anymore. We're going under tonight.
We're going under.
But I like Jordan Addison's game. It's such a wild card. But at wide receiver 42, I think that's fine. I mean, I don't know. The upside is there. I mean, he's certainly one of the top 40 wide receivers in talent in the league. So it's just a question of who's throwing him the ball and are they getting him the ball. But I also think Minnesota might be down a lot, Chris, where you get some inflated, empty stats in a blowout loss where like you're getting some targets late that don't really mean anything except for
Junk
fantasy
ball.
football. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, and I guess I'm trying to put myself in my own shoes, like week 5, week 6, where Jordan Addison's only gotten me like 6 points, then 9 points, then 7 points. And I'm just like, do I start this guy or do I just sit him on my bench? I don't know. Like, I just trying to get up to speed with the quarterback in the early part of the season, how much patience I just don't want to deal with that. Like, I just don't want to have to deal with it. So maybe that for me, that's just why I'm not going to probably prioritize him necessarily, at least in like some of these later mid to late rounds. But if he's there again, I might take a flyer on him. Doc, anything else on Jordan Addison?
Yeah, I mean, this has got to be one of the more intriguing options that you've selected on here. I mean, you take a look at what he did last year, but you got to take a look at who the quarterback was, and you look at his quarterback options this year, and you obviously have to know that there is something that's going to change. And obviously, in most eyes, it's downhill. At wide receiver 40, I mean, I think it's pretty good because last year he was 28 overall, WR 28 overall. So this year they haven't projected for 68 receptions, 874 yards, and 6 touchdowns. I mean, if you ask me, that's kind of spot on for the range that they have him at. But we also have to understand that TJ Hawkinson is out recovering from ACL surgery. And the tight ends that are replacing him are Josh Oliver, who is supposedly supposed to be tight end 1, but Tanyan's there, tight end 2, and they're going to be fighting for their position. So if one of those guys eats into it a little bit, because Tanyan has shown that he's been a capable look, especially with how teams are going to play against Addison. I think 40 is fine. Obviously, the later the rounds go and there's other options, that's fine. But as Scotty said, he's arguably inside the top 40 athletic wise, skill wise. So I can see where you're coming from. But for me, I mean, it's just going to be a mess in Minnesota until they can get that offense figured out, especially with how much Hawkinson brings to that offense.
Yeah, totally fair. Totally fair. So keep an eye just on him. I think Rex chilling in the chat. He's just hanging out in the chat. He's well. He's alive and well. So there you go. Welcome in, Rec. Good to have you.
Is that Rec or AI Rec?
It's AI Rec. Because someone put that together on the fly. Let's see. Where else? There were some questions, I think, on a couple of those. Mahomes will be on the list if Scott had anything to do with making the list. I think Addison should be fine to draft. Addison and Jefferson had trash quarterback last year, did fine in fantasy. Rex says, have we brought up Eckler? No, he's on the list, though. He's on the list, and you already knew he was going to be on my list.
I feel like, and he's kind of on my list, but yeah, like, I feel like everyone feels that way, right? Like
nobody, don't draft Eckler, guys. He's do I have to recap it again? 6 touchdowns all year last year. He's old. He's full of injuries. He
goes to a stacked offense. Yeah.
Like offense with a rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels. Brian Robinson is there getting goal line carries probably. So like there's nothing great to have Eckler. You shouldn't have him on your roster. Just leave him alone. Unless he's like late stage. Even still, like I'll let someone else draft him. Like you ever go through a draft and you're just like, please, someone take that, like this person that's at the top of my draft list because he's the best available, and I don't want to take him because of all the reasons in my gut that tell me not to. And there's one of 2 things that happen. 1, someone takes it and you just feel that relief, or 2, no one takes him and you're just like stuck trying to decide, damn, do I gotta take this dude? Eckler's a guy that falls in that category. I don't want anything to do with it.
No.
I mean, we don't need to spend more time on Eckler just for that reason. Any guys on your guys' list? Scotty, anybody that pops on your radar?
Yeah, I got a couple guys. Who do I want to talk about right now? Let's go with a guy that changed sceneries, Chris.
Ooh,
But I don't love him. I don't love him. It's I don't know if our boy Milwaukee's here, but Josh Jacobs is not my dude.
Josh
Not my dude.
Jacobs. Okay.
I feel like Josh Jacobs has had such a weird career. I mean, he started out his first couple years after being a late first round pick for the Raiders, played pretty well, pretty prolific, but there's an outlier season, Chris, and it's his best season ever. 2022, he was at running back, I think like 2, maybe running back 3 in all the league. I think he was RB3. He dropped back last year again to RB28, Chris. He doesn't really catch out of the backfield. You still have, I mean, I don't feel like he's as prolific, or 2022 was the only year where he like had good, yards per attempt, or like he just got a ton of touches before that. You're looking at a guy that, I mean, you still have AJ Dillon. Green Bay drafted a running back in the 3rd round, Marshawn Lloyd, that might steal some touches. I know AJ Dillon sucked ass last year, but goal line stuff, they still might give the ball to AJ Dillon on goal line and steal some of those touchdowns. I mean, the dude's hard to bring down, especially at the goal line. So I don't like Josh Jacobs. Frankly, I think it's a downgrade from Aaron Jones, and I don't understand why Green Bay did it. Especially because Josh Jacobs has never been a guy that catches the ball out of the backfield. So while Green Bay might score a lot of points and Jordan Love might sling it around, I do not love Josh Jacobs this year and where he's getting drafted. Where is he at? He's ranked around.
He's ranked around like 16
10 to 15.
Yeah, they have him 12 on this one.
Yeah,
which
somewhere
12
in the 10 to 15.
I think is a little high. I think 12 is a little high for me.
I think he should be in the 20s.
I mean, here's the thing: like 2003 finished second in touches per game. Despite that, he was running back 17 in fantasy points per game due to career lows in rushing yards, touchdowns, and yards per rush. Like, I mean, so it wasn't all great. Like, I mean, there was some weird things that were happening with Josh Jacobs last year that I feel like are kind of overshadowing all the good things that people are hyped about him, especially going to a Green Bay where like, oh, this is going to be the best upgrade he could possibly imagine. And I think people like overestimating maybe a little too much.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at what he did last year, and then you take a look at what he's going to be doing this year. I mean, RB12 to me with a guy that doesn't really catch the ball. Yeah, he's going to get some rushing attempts, but they have him projected at 230 points, 255 attempts on 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. That's all fine and dandy, but last year he had a total of 37 receptions on 54 targets. And to me, especially with what I'm, my style, and I'm sure some of the chat and you guys can agree with this. If I'm going to grab somebody that high, it needs to be a dual style back that can catch or run. And I just feel like with that Green Bay offense, with the wide receiving core they have, and even with Jordan Love taking a step forward, I do think them throwing the ball is going to be their kind of like their forte because it worked for them, and to me, he's going to be like Rachaad White last year. Elite role, not very good at tackle breaking, en route to maybe having an RB1 season. But like Scotty said, Marshawn Lloyd's there. For me, RB2 is going to be even shaky, but we know what he's capable of, but I just don't see that 400 touch season. Don't expect that at the very least.
All right. Well, there you have it. There's so keep an eye on that one as well. All right. Perfect. All right. So let's move on to a couple. Doc, did you want to throw another one out there?
I'm gonna take the layup on this one. And I'm gonna go with Nick Chubb.
Okay.
For the simple fact is coming off the injury. Um, looking at a lot of the tweets, a lot of the noise coming out of camp, especially his area, he literally just got started into lateral motion, which is a good monitor, like a good step for progress. But he's not going to be available until week 6 through 8, roughly. And if I'm going to take somebody, I want somebody that's healthy. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying don't take him, but unless you have an area where you're going to need something late, then do it. But we don't know what kind of conditioning he's even going to be in. But when he does come back, it's going to take him weeks beyond coming back to even know what he's literally going to be able to do. Do they keep him light? Do they do a light workload? Like, depending on what Cleveland does too. We got to keep that in mind. Jerome Ford and the rest of the guys there. So, I just think that Chubb is another one that unless he's there late, I would just not even take a flyer on him this year, just for the simple fact that you're not going to get the Nick Chubb of old. You might get value out of him maybe in the last couple weeks, but let's be honest, it's going to take him a couple weeks to get healthy. And if he comes back in week 8, you're already going to be either going to be an established in going into your playoffs, or you're going to miss the playoffs. So by that point, you need to have somebody that's going to be worth points, and he's just not going to give you the value.
I'll tell you though, he's going to be in that squat rack benching putting up like plates on plates. Isn't he?
Absolutely.
Isn't he doing that again? Isn't he like in there just crushing weight?
He's a monster.
Ugh.
Right.
But this leg injury was the most gruesome he's had, and he's had some other ones, obviously.
Speaking of gruesome leg, have you seen Alex Smith's leg?
I was going to bring. That's what I was segueing to, Chris.
Oh man!
Oh my gosh, that guy led the Washington. What were they at the time? I think they were. Were they the football team? Were they the Redskins? I don't remember. Anyway, he led them to playoffs with that leg. If you guys haven't seen it,
I'm gonna
look up Alex Smith's leg.
I'll pull it up real quick.
Oh,
the spiral fracture.
My God! But it's a picture of his leg, like a recent photo. It is.
It's wild. Here, let me pull it up.
Gross.
Hold on.
Gross.
This thing right here. This is Alex Smith's leg.
I mean, it looks like there's a creature growing inside there.
That thing is wild.
Like a gremlin's gonna pop out of there or something.
I mean,
he played after that. They should rename the Comeback Player of the Year award to just the Alex Smith Award. He played
6
in the
years.
NFL with that leg.
Oh,
his skin is so smooth, right?
Tib fib injuries are nothing to mess with.
Yeah, tibula fibula shattered. Piglet is what happened.
But then he also had it got what's the word I'm looking for? The surgery didn't go well.
It got
infected, and then there was a whole other mess with that.
He had complications.
Like he was close to dying based off of how bad it was.
It was crazy.
And there's an ESPN. If you haven't ever seen that, that's a good one to check out. Alex Smith's ESPN 30. I don't know if it's 30 for 30 or whatever it is, but going over his gruesome injury. But yeah, that one was gruesome. Chris, I got another name. I just don't. Listen. I love the player and the potential, but why in the hell is Marvin Harrison Jr. going top 10 right now? Top 10 wide receivers, I should say. Top 10 wide receivers.
Hey, Graham.
Let's go.
What's up, Graham? Welcome, man. Also, Maddie. Maddie Dubs, you're welcome for the raid the other night. It was great checking you out the other night on your channel. Appreciate the love that you were giving us on there. Yeah, we're live here in the ActionLab Sports Channel all the time. So, guys, my name is Chris. This is Scott. We're your hosts. We're here live every Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday. We're breaking down do not draft players at least too high on your draft boards. So, yeah, welcome in. By the way, if you're new, Graham, anybody else, let us know who your teams are, where you're from, so we could like to get to know you a little bit better. All right. So, yeah.
I just listen. Why is he getting? I mean, literally, I'm looking at a site that has him ranked number 9 wide receiver in half PPR. The guy in front of him is Puka Nacua, who had the best rookie season we've ever seen, and he's only a slot ahead. He got guys like Devontae Adams, Brandon Ayuk, Mike Evans, Nico Collins, Drake London, Chris Olave, all behind him. I know he's a great talent. He's going to be really good. I also question under Kyler Murray, when has Arizona ever had like a super prolific wide receiver in fantasy? Like, they've had talented guys, and it hasn't really happened. Like, remember when, oh my gosh, the guy that Jacksonville signed, Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk went from not being prolific in Arizona, and everyone made fun of like the signing that Jacksonville made, and then he's been pretty damn good in Jacksonville, way better than he ever was in Arizona. Someone else mentioned Hollywood. Yeah, Hollywood's obviously go off this year after getting out of Arizona. I mean, Hollywood's had a tough go because he had to play with, like, especially when Kyler was hurt, scrubs in Arizona, and then he didn't even have a quarterback in Baltimore. He had a running back playing quarterback for him. So, like, finally he's got a quarterback that's going to throw him the ball. So Hollywood is on the draft list. But I just listen. I love where I don't even think Marvin Harrison will be the top rookie wideout in the league in fantasy this year.
I saw ESPN's rankings, and I saw he's ranked 11th on ESPN's rankings. Devontae's right behind him at 12. If you're giving me a choice, I mean it's Devontae, right? I mean, like, there are some names down here. I mean, you go, yes.
I'd take Devontae Smith over him probably.
Yeah, I mean, probably, right? I mean, it's just
you take proven over what can be.
I mean, I like taking what can be at times. I just don't know where, like, wide receiver, like, you're putting him in front of guys that have had stacking 1,000-yard years with a lot of TDs, just assuming he's going to fall in front of them. And I'm like, I don't know. I think Malik Neighbors is going to have a better opportunity. I know people hate Daniel Jones, and I get all that. But Malik Neighbors is a guy I might target more, especially where you can get him in the draft, more than a Marvin Harrison, who I think is being overvalued a ton.
Color Blast. What's up, Color Blast? By the way, he said Jamal Murray's cooked. I mean, Jamal Murray's not in a great system right now, by the way. And he's not comfortable. He doesn't like playing for them. I mean, it's complicated.
He's trying to fit in with the system, all right? But he doesn't like to play with a ball dominant guard like SGA.
Which, by the way, that's the whole that just defends everything we're saying about Westbrook being on the starting lineup with, like, you can't move Jamal. Anyways, we're off topic there. Color Blast also says,
let me guess, it will be Xavier Worthy. No. No, he's probably the second best rookie. What? No, I'm just kidding.
If you watched Marvin Harrison look good even with Kyle McCord at Ohio State, who had transferred to Syracuse, who sucks at college football. But yeah, this is different though. I mean,
was he that good though? I mean, he was good, but he wasn't putting up the numbers he was prior to that with CJ Stroud by any means. I listen, I love his ability and his talent, but to put him top 10 wideout before playing a snap in the league, I don't think he's that dude at this time. And there's so many good wide receivers in the league. It's so stacked. I mean, Chris, we have the best player in all the NFL that's a wide receiver, Chris. I don't know if you heard, but Tyreek Hill is the best player in the league.
Best player. Not even close. Yeah. It's not even close.
He better be. He reworked his contract because he has so many kids he has to pay child support on.
True.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Maddie in the chat, we nervous about the Bears offense being the Bears offense been covering their training camp. Injuries, and man, the defense is having field days against Caleb. Like, I mean, and that's learning curve, right? I mean, he's getting into the swing of things like that. A lot of rookie quarterbacks are, getting in. Like, I was telling Scotty this weekend when I was hanging, I was like, there was a point where I was looking at JJ McCarthy and literally one post said he was doing great, and I scrolled down to the next post, and it was him again. That was like he was getting trashed. So I feel like it's kind of there's a lot of narratives, being spun around.
Chris told me the same thing, but he's like, "Oh, I'm hearing a lot. Ready for the Bo Nix show."
Bo Nix, baby!
I almost spit out my drink at that point.
It's my quarterback.
I was like, all I've heard about Bo Nix is like he's not. Yeah, he had like one really good day, but otherwise it's been like it hasn't been great. And right now he's not the starter. If they started a game today, I don't think he'd start. I think You're
You know what I think? I think like, you know how Republicans and Democrats both get different feeds of information on their social. I think I get the positive feed and you get the negative feed because you're on the opposite end of the fence with the Chiefs. And I think,
but you get like Denver people. I just get mine's not.
I
no
get
one
everything.
like it's not like Chiefs fans are covering. They don't care. They don't even think about Bo Nix. There's not a thought that goes into Chiefs fans about Bo Nix.
The future.
It's more just like, you know, NFL people that are just like
he's coming. The future.
I mean, yeah. Listen, I think he's a good kid. Well, I say kid, but he's actually almost as old as Mahomes, I think.
Mature. So. He's mature. You know.
Well, he's just old. He was in college for a long time, Chris.
So anyways, so yeah, social media is all over the place on guys in camp. So, yeah, I mean, Maddie, I think Bears, you know, Caleb needs reps, get up to speed with things. I think, you know, he'll get better and better as time goes on. All right, another player on my do not draft list. Someone that I probably am staying away from. You mentioned it might be a perfect segue. Tyreek Hill. I think Tua's on this list for me. I don't know how I feel about Tua this year. Like he had. So think about this. He's lost a lot of weight, but Scotty, the best quarterbacks in the league are getting dad bods. Why are we losing weight when the best quarterbacks have dad bods, Scotty? I don't understand. So Tua losing a lot of weight, looking in great shape, looking like he's in, like, what are we doing? Get a dad bod and be good at football. I'm just saying. But by the way, speaking of Tua last year, offense was cooking. Led the league in passing, 5th most touchdowns, 2nd most yards per attempt. Tyreek almost set the record for yards, and he was quarterback 19 in fantasy. Quarterback 19 in fantasy. It was literally the best case scenario for him. Like, you couldn't have drawn up a better year for Tua from a fantasy standpoint of, hey, here's everything on a silver platter, and he finished QB 19. I don't know. I'm just a little worried that maybe if any of those numbers step down, which they kind of, I feel like they should, because those were outrageous. I mean, he's going to have to do that much more. Maybe he has to score more touchdowns, but that's just another thing. By the way, shout out Marcus in the chat. Harrison will struggle against press coverage early in his career. Welcome in, first time.
For sure. I mean, a lot of rookies do, and they will press him because he doesn't have. Well, he's got plenty of speed. He's not like elite speed where they're going to have to play off on Harrison from the jump. So, he's going to have to figure that out. He's going to go through some growing pains. Like, I don't know. Kyler's not like Kyler likes to, you know, run around, do some circles, you know, find someone later on or with the ball. So I don't know in a system like if Kyler Murray is a great fit with Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, Tua. So I was talking about Tua. Your guys' thoughts on Tua?
I wouldn't draft him. I mean, if he's not your starter in fantasy. He doesn't run the ball at all. He provides 0 in the run game.
Correct.
You're basically relying on, you know, him, and they run the ball a lot. Let's keep in mind, you know, they love to. I mean, they have 2-back system where they hand the ball off a lot too. I know, obviously, they throw and they have, you know, you think Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and all this that they're gonna just sling it around, but unless he just gets a ton of touchdowns, he's not a startable guy. And on top of that, you still have the injury history with, you know, bad injuries at Alabama, but then also just the head stuff, right? Like, you know, the more concussions you get, and I hate saying that, and I obviously don't want that to happen. And the other problem with Tua for me, Chris, is the dude can't play in cold weather. I think I witnessed that very well in the playoffs against KC. So if you're in fantasy football playoff time and you're trying to play Tua,
good luck.
You better hope he's at home. You better hope he's playing in Miami or in a dome, because
you need it.
If it's outdoors, it's not going to go well for you.
He's like that.
At all.
He's like that desert oasis where you're crawling through a desert looking for fantasy points, and you think you finally found some because it's like, oh man, it's all right. Like we got Tyreek healthy, we got all the wide receivers, all our running backs are healthy, and you're getting to, you see the water, and you get to it, and it just dries up on you, and you're like, wait a minute, what just happened? I feel like that's Tua, and you think it looks better than it actually is. With all those receivers, with all that offense, like you would expect him to have the best fantasy situation you could possibly imagine. And that's just not the case. It's just weird. Marcus,
he has the best player in the NFL to throw the ball to, Chris. we can ignore the fact that best player in the NFL got traded away from a team that then went on to win 2 straight Super Bowls. That is irrelevant.
Who cares about that?
I don't even know what player or team we're talking about.
The only way I'd draft Tua is if I had Tyreek already for the double points, and he would still be my number 2 quarterback on my roster. He's 1 concussion away from being. That's another thing we didn't even mention was the concussions.
Actually, I did mention that, Chris. So that's hurtful.
Oh well. I mean,
it's like you don't listen to me. He doesn't listen to me.
I blocked you out.
He doesn't listen to me at all. And I felt like he even responded to me saying that, but he must have just said yeah and like not
was on
knowing what I even said. Yeah.
I got that AI brain, it just like it's computing all the time.
It's hurtful.
It's
I listen to the trash you spew out.
It must be Windows 95 as your processor.
Doc, anything else on Tua?
Yeah, I mean, you guys just mentioned it, and Sky mentioned it earlier, the concussions. That's my biggest concern, but we also have to take a look at it this way. They have him a QB 14. Last year, he went 19 touchdowns and 7 interceptions the first half of the season before the bye. After the bye, he was 10 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, with a lot of the games being 1 touchdown or 2 touchdowns, and maybe if you're lucky. The Jets game, he didn't look good. Vegas, he had 2 and 1 for 325, but after that, he didn't throw for over 300.
It got cold.
Exactly. And so my biggest thing, if I'm taking a guy at 14, and he's going to be my backup, because let's be honest, he did not show up like he did in the first half, like he did in the second half. And you want a guy that's going to be there for consistency. And we really didn't see first half Tua. If he can be first half Tua for an entire season, then I'll put him in another echelon. But like you said, he doesn't run. He hasn't been consistent. He wasn't consistent all year. Yeah, he had a decent year at 29-14, but the second half of the season, he was literally a 10-7 guy, which I need more than that if I'm drafting him as a quarterback. So I agree that he definitely should be a backup unless you absolutely have Tyreek, because let's be honest, if the rest of the team, you have question marks. Jalen Waddle is injury prone, and then you got Odell Beckham, Jonnu Smith. So, besides the run game, you do have question marks at receiver behind Tyreek. So for me, I would definitely have him as a backup quarterback unless I have Tyreek.
And maybe I'm different on this, and I don't know. People in the chat, let me know your thoughts. I don't typically have 2 quarterbacks on my roster.
Well, and it depends on how you draft.
I usually roll with 1 in the draft. I only draft my guy. I mean, maybe if I wait super long on QB, and so I get QB 10, I might want to double up and to just, in case that guy's trash, have another guy on the roster. But if you get a top 5 QB, let's say, or even, top 8 QB, how often are you going to play your backup? And if he gets hurt, if that QB gets hurt, how much better is your backup than somebody you can get off the waiver?
Sure.
And then obviously you have the bye week, of course, but bye week, waiver wire 1 week, I can roll with a guy that, is going to be potentially just as good, if not better, than whoever I have as backup.
Yeah. I think once you start getting into QB, 11, 12, 13, then you're kind of like, all right, how do I need to pair them with somebody? If you're late in your draft, and there's a really good option, right? But
right.
If you got a Lamar Jackson, a Patrick Mahomes, a Jalen Hurts, Anthony, those types of guys, you're probably not, those guys are always going to be in your starting lineup, and you're just going to need one placeholder for 1 week for your bye week, barring any kind of injury. Obviously, knock on wood for your fantasy team. But yeah, it's like you don't want to have to deal with headaches and like just an empty roster spot that's just holding up from what you could be having on your depth from wide receivers or running backs, right? So just keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. We're spewing knowledge here that you guys really need to like, think about your draft a little bit, right? Not all drafts are the same. So yeah, good point. Good point, Scotty.
Shout out Taiwan on who was in downtown Denver a couple weeks back.
Hey Ty, how was your trip? Good
thanks
to have you.
Thanks for hitting us up.
Yeah, thanks for hitting us up. What, I mean, come on. What do we chop liver over here?
Hope you enjoyed your time. And yeah, as Tickle My Nip says, oh snap, downtown can be fun or horrible depending on. It's true. It's true. It's not where it was maybe 10 years ago. Downtown's a little sketchier, unfortunately now. But Tickle My Nip, Chris, he's like, God, last year sucked for me in fantasy. I drafted Burrow and Eckler. Maybe we should have him come into the voice chat to just say who he likes this year, and that is also included in our.
You want to pop in, Tickle, and just tell us everybody who you loved last year, and then we can just throw them in on the list.
Add to the do not draft list.
We could do that. I mean, for sure.
Roger.
All right. Scotty. Doc.
Scotty heard about how he has to take super hot sauce soon. No. Unfamiliar with that.
Well, we got to get subs first, Rec. We got to get subs first. Guys, subs and I eat some hot sauce is basically what I decided. I decided to just go through with it. So we need, I don't know, Rec's keeping tabs. So if you guys want to sub to the channel and see me in pain, make sure you drop in some subs. You can subscribe for free, and you get, Scotty, you weren't here for this. You can subscribe to any one channel and get 3 months of Apple TV for free. Think about that. Get a code and everything.
Gotta do it, people.
So,
how incredible is that?
There you go. See?
Is there any streaming NFL games through Apple TV this year? I don't know.
I don't even know.
Is Apple one of them?
Hey, Marcus! Let's go!
Marcus wants 3 months of Apple TV.
Hey, 3 months of Apple TV.
Thank you, Marcus.
My man.
Let's go. Thank you, Marcus, for the Prime sub. Thank you. So appreciate that. Some of you guys follow Marcus's lead. Let's jump in. ! Prime in the chat. I think that link still works on how you can subscribe for free and get 3 months of Apple TV on the house for Jeff Bezos will pay the bill. He's got you.
It's very kind of him. I know he's struggling, like a lot of Americans are with inflation and all that stuff. Yeah.
Then you could go to the water cooler and tell your coworkers, "Hey, Jeff Bezos pays for my Apple TV." It's easy. Yes, sir. Thank you, Marcus. Any other? What's another name, Scotty, on your radar?
Oh, let's see. I gotta get.
We talked about him. We talked about him off stream.
Are you talking about QB?
No, wide receiver.
That I said?
Yep.
Holy cow! Who did I say?
Keenan Allen.
I said Keenan Allen. I don't think I said Keenan Allen.
We talked about Keenan Allen.
Ooh.
Was I there?
Yeah, you were there.
Was that when I was frozen when you sent me the virus?
Yeah, it was right when the virus. It was AI. Scotty, I knew it.
Keenan Allen, obviously going to a new team, not knowing what. I mean, we got the guy who was talking about the Bears struggling in camp. Keenan Allen's a guy that relies a lot on obviously route running and timing, and that has to be on point. And a lot of times with a rookie quarterback, that can be a struggle. Now, he seemed to do just fine with Justin Herbert, but he's had good quarterback play pretty much throughout his career with Phillip Rivers and then Justin Herbert. So if Caleb Williams isn't on point in attacking there, I mean you also have DJ Moore there, so you have some options on the Bears to throw the ball to. Yeah, I don't think Keenan Allen is the perfect fit as far as what, at least this year, Caleb Williams is going to be able to do and hitting that timing route that, because it's not like Keenan Allen's going deep. He's not a deep ball guy by any stretch of the
No.
imagination. And he's too old now to. If Caleb Williams starts running around in the backfield, Keenan Allen's just going to stop and be like, "I'm exhausted. What are we doing?" He's not going to be the guy that's trying to get open and just manufacture stuff like and play backyard football. That's not what Keenan Allen does. I love Keenan Allen as a player. Would have loved to see him in KC, frankly, but yeah, I don't love the fit with Caleb Williams, at least in year one.
Injuries and age just don't go hand in hand, and he's got both. Like he always is dealing with something. So it is how reliable is he going to be from week to week?
Speaking of age, I'm going to do a code yellow real
Code
quick.
yellow spam the yellow code yellow in the chat. Go ahead, get it done. Anything else on Keenan Allen there, Doc? Before I jump to my next guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's just going to be intriguing being in a new offense. I mean, you look at last year with where he was with what was it, Kellen Moore? Was it Kellen Moore? Is that where he the coordinator was for them over there in LA? But basically, Kellen Moore, yeah. He is in a new offense, but the receiving core, like Scotty and you talked about, they are a whole lot better. Yeah, and the quarterback play is a huge question, but the things that people are like focusing on, in my opinion, is his age. And look at the injuries. At some point the injury is going to come, which is unfortunate because of what he's put up over the years and what he's done for that team in LA. Now he comes into Chicago and everything's different. You have so many question marks. He's just a guy that I would always give the benefit of the doubt, but I can't do it this year just for the simple fact of the status of that Bears offense.
Yeah, the Bears are a wait and see for me. The Bears are a wait and see because they could. I mean, here's the thing: they could be really, really good, and we could be missing out a little bit. But you could also just completely whiff, and they're going to be building things up for the next couple of years. And I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, interesting. Real quick in the chat while we wait for Sky to get back, Marcus. I have a sad do not draft player. I'd like to hear thoughts. Derrick Henry, love the player, but his age, no real backup in the Ravens running back room is clearly jinxed with the season-ending injuries. Hope I'm wrong. I'm with you, Marcus. I'm hot. I like Derrick Henry in Baltimore, but there are some weird juju things with running backs in Baltimore. There's some weird, I think Henry's coming off boards in the end of second into the third-ish, fourth-ish round, somewhere in that range.
RB9.
Somewhere in that range. So, if he's fallen a little bit, I would take a gamble on knowing that's what the Ravens' identity is running the football, and he's very good, and he can the Ravens are able to create a lot of once the ball is handed off, they create space for their running backs, regardless of who's back there. So I love him, especially a downhill runner like him. I like him a lot. Injuries is the only thing.
I'm a little confused. They say that he doesn't have any competition at running back in Baltimore?
He said that no real backup and the Ravens running back room is clearly jinxed. Is what
Derrick Henry's the backup.
Well, Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry's the backup running back in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson's the starting running
back
true. In Baltimore. Let's not kid ourselves. It's just it's eventually the dude has had so much wear and tear. Tennessee just drove that man around.
He's got a lot of mileage on those tires,
Derek, our quarterback's going to be Ryan Tannehill again this year. So guess what? We're going to hand the ball off to you a lot. What's up, Storchio? I just question an aging back. Now, obviously, they seem to insert guys at running back in Baltimore matter, and whoever's there is decently
Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell, and Rasheen Ali are their backups.
Yeah, so those are the third, fourth, and fifth string. Not great there. That's actually garbage behind him, but he's still. He doesn't catch the ball a ton. Never has done that part. So that's obviously you're gonna need touchdowns from him because you can't. I don't know that you can give Derrick Henry the amount of touches he's used to getting. The dude's gonna break down.
Well, let me ask you this,
Derrick, in Baltimore is a team that has to think Not about regular season wins necessarily. They should hopefully be confident enough that they're going to make the postseason. They gotta make sure their guys are ready and fresh in the playoffs. It won't matter because their quarterback's not good enough, but still, that's how they should think.
Well, let me see if this sways you a little bit on how you feel about them. So they have them projected at 230 points, RB9, 266 attempts, 1,179 yards, and 11 touchdowns. Does that sway you at all?
Say 1,100 yards and how many touchdowns?
11.
And that's RB9
Yeah.
in a PPR or half PPR, or is that just standard?
That's
That
it.
has
It
to be
doesn't.
standard.
It doesn't just say. It just says.
Because that doesn't seem like good enough numbers to be RB9 in a even a half PPR to me.
That is in PPR.
Those aren't good enough. That can't be RB9.
That's
Are
what
we
they
really
have.
to the point where a running back that gets 1,100 yards and 11 TD RB9? Wild. I guess I should look at this a little bit because that
seems
wildly low to me as far as numbers.
I mean, and to put it into perspective, he was RB10 last year in PPR, according to Fantasy Pros.
And he had 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns last year. So, what does that tell you? Unless you get Christian McCaffrey, maybe just don't even bother with running backs.
just don't
I'm not
even
taking
draft
any
a
running
running
backs.
back. Don't even do it.
Just take whoever. Post draft, get a couple guys.
It's a passing league. You're right, Cuban. Speaking of passing league, a guy that I also have on my list that I'm like not that a lot of people are taking really high as QB6. CJ Stroud is going really, really high in a lot of drafts. And rightfully so. He was insanely good, a stud as his rookie year, super likable, great. Just when we're talking about football, like just regular football, not fantasy, he's insane. He's so good. Fantasy's a little different though, right? I mean, there's a difference between what you get from CJ versus some of these others. Now generally, he's a pocket quarterback. I mean, he scrambles a little bit. He kind of moves around to throw the ball, but he's not exactly using his legs to beat you like some of these other guys that are above him. Like when you're looking at the list of like the Josh Allens who get touchdowns on the goal line, Lamar Jackson gets yardage and touchdowns. Jalen Hurts gets the goal line carries. Like, there's Anthony Richardson, Kyler Murray, and even Mahomes. Mahomes is, still running around a little bit, but like, he's not that dual threat quite yet. At least maybe he gets there, maybe he doesn't. But he's just not.
That's okay.
And that's just the difference in value with a dual threat quarterback versus a non-dual threat. And for going QB6, I think is a little high in a lot of drafts. And so second year teams are going to be on him. This is going to be a tougher schedule this year. So he's going to see some better teams this year than they saw last year. I mean, you can wait and get a ton of quarterbacks, a little later, the Jordan Loves or, even Goff, like we were talking about earlier, Goff and, pair him with somebody and, have some success by waiting a few rounds and not overdrafting on a CJ Stroud. But after the Allens, the Jacksons, Mahomes, Hurts, Richardsons, even the Murrays, maybe, the fact that CJ Stroud is this high seems a little weird. I'm not taking him that high.
Yeah, listen, as a pure quarterback, I think people are just hyping his quarterback ability. But as a fantasy quarterback option, because of the lack of running, his potential to end at like QB1 is almost zero.
He needs touchdowns.
Happen.
He needs like tons of touchdowns.
He needs like 5,000 yards and 40 plus touchdowns to even think about being QB1. Whereas you get these running threats like Anthony Richardson or Kyler Murray, and like those guys, because of the running portion of it, have way more upside than CJ Stroud. Obviously, CJ Stroud's got a very good offense to throw behind. He plays in a dome. You add Stephon Diggs, who it's debatable after Stephon Diggs had like less points than what's his name, Shakir for Buffalo over the last like 10 weeks last year. But you add him to Nico Collins, get Tank Dell healthy. Obviously, that's a very dangerous. You got at tight end, the guy from Dallas. Why am I drawing blanks on names right now? So obviously a great offense, and they're going to be really good. points. Fantasy wise, because he provides nothing running wise at all. Like people are like, oh, well, he could just do what Mahomes does. Mahomes actually provides some running, right? Like especially in the regular season, less than he would in the playoffs, but still can do it and get some yards there. So I don't. Yeah, I love the player CJ Stroud. I don't love him at QB5. I would sit and wait and take some other guys at QB maybe a little later and let someone else take CJ Stroud.
I mean, if you're gonna go, I mean, take a pocket quarterback, just wait and take Joe Burrow in later round. Like you could say and get some other guys ahead of him. Like Joe Burrow's kind of that mold of the same thing. Great offense, great everything. Can scramble here and there, but that's not his identity. He's a pocket passer, and you could get him for a better value than getting CJ Stroud at QB5. So yeah, just if that's the case, go Joe Burrow and just get some other players in between. Doc, anything?
Yeah. Also, Scotty, the name you're looking for is Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, I almost said Owen Daniels, and I'm like, oh my god,
wow, that's a throw. That's a blade
right?
Here,
right?
You know?
I almost said Owen Daniels, and I'm like, I know that's not. But shout out to Owen Daniels, great former Texan tight end.
Shout out,
absolutely. But I agree that QB5. I think that's a little high. I mean, yeah, all the ingredients are there for him to possibly get there, but I just don't see him necessarily beating out Allen, Hurts, Mahomes. You could even throw in Richardson. I think Richardson would be one. Burrow would be another one that I think Cincinnati takes a step forward, as much as it pains me. But I think Stroud's going to be in the top 10, and I do think he's going to be a valuable option. But at QB5, if you're going to take a quarterback that early, you're just wasting other value you could get at a different position, especially a wide receiver or running back. Diggs is there, and he adds to Collins and Tank Dell, and Dalton Schultz will be serviceable. But I just for me, I need to see another year of this. I need to see him keep it all together. I mean, his stats were great. I mean, let's be honest. I'd take a guy with a 23-5 touchdown to interception ratio, but 39 rushing attempts. He was almost sacked as many times as he attempted to rush the ball last year. He had 38 sacks to 39 rushing attempts. And if I'm taking a top quarterback, it needs to be one with legs. That's just my opinion, where he's got the dual threat, with the rushing touchdowns, especially like Jalen Hurts, who had 15 rushing touchdowns last year or something like that. If I do that, but if you do end up with Diggs, you might be able to snag him on the way back. But there's just, I think, better value in the top 5 than for him, at least for right now. Now he can go out and prove us wrong, and that's fantastic. But like just right now, like I said, I just think there's other names out there that just provide more value in that slot.
Yeah.
And to go along with that real quick, I don't love any of the Houston options as weapons. Just because they're so stacked. Like I feel like they're just gonna spread around. Like between Nico Collins and Tank Dell, and now Stephon Diggs and Dalton Schultz / Owen Daniels. You add Joe Mixon as running back. There's just a lot of mouths to feed and a lot to go around, where like, unless this is like going back to the days of like the greatest show on turf and in the Rams with Kurt Warner in the early 2000s, like unless they're just the most prolific offense we've seen in a long time, some of these guys, like I love them as players. I don't. As Stephon Diggs, I have concerns about, but I like Nico Collins. I like Tank Dell, Joe Mixon. I also the aging guys. I have those two. I like as players, just like I like CJ Stroud as player. But as a fantasy option, I just don't know. There's so many mouths to feed, and we know from Buffalo, like Stephon Diggs is one of those wide receivers where if he's not getting the ball, he's not going to be happy. He's going to let you know on the sideline. That look, are they going to force the ball to Stephon Diggs? Like he's always been, well, at least in Buffalo, he's wide receiver 1. In Minnesota, it was him and Adam Thielen that kind of were 1A, 1B. But like, is he comfortable with being like the number 3 option in an offense? And how does that look? I wouldn't touch Stephon Diggs with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, it's actually interesting with that, because Nico Collins is actually ranked above him. Nico Collins is ranked at 17. Stephon Diggs is at 24, and then Tank Dell is at 32. And for you, Tickle, actually, Scary Terry's actually at 31 on the projections.
I mean, Scary Terry is another guy I like it. What it's just the reports out of Washington that I've heard with Drake May haven't been great.
Drake May hasn't exactly had glowing reviews from camp so far. At least
Or
from
not Drake. Drake May's in New England. What am I saying?
Or
Jaden Daniels is.
Or Jaden. Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I knew that. Just
well, they both haven't. Both of them haven't actually. So it could go both.
I mean, if you're talking fantasy wise, Jaden Daniels is gonna be more like because Jaden Daniels has that running ability, but Jaden Daniels, if he's gonna run the ball, better figure out how to fall down or get out of bounds.
Some other players that I'm kind of on the fence with a little bit of when it comes to draft, and I'm not huge on. I'm gonna rapid fire maybe a couple of these. Jonathan Brooks, Panthers. He's a guy that I'm probably staying away from in my drafts, based off of the fact that one, he a kid out of Texas for the Panthers, traded up for him, tore his ACL in November. Still needs to learn the NFL game a little bit. One of the worst offenses around the NFL, combined with ACL. He needs to he would need to get reps. He would need to beat out the odds stacked against him are just kind of crazy. So not touching anything near Jonathan Brooks, at least for mine. And then one other one real quick before I have one other on my list besides this one as well. Devin Singletary is another one. Giants never has had 900 yards in a season. Combined that with the fact that the Giants just don't score touchdowns, and we kind of don't know what their offense is going to look like this upcoming season. He gets enough touches where you don't want him to you don't want to bench him, but at the same time, you'll never want to put him in your lineup. So it's kind of like that. He's just like roster clogger. Devin Singletary. So yeah, Jonathan Brooks, Devin Singletary are a couple guys that I'm also out on.
A couple other names that I don't love. I don't know. I can't even fully tell you why. I just have a really bad feeling about Jonathan Taylor as a top 5 running back. I know he had obviously 2 years ago the exploding season, got injured, or 3 years ago or whatever that was. Hasn't been fully healthy. You have a quarterback that's probably gonna steal some touchdowns away on the ground there.
Yep.
I don't know that as RB5 or whatever he is, that I feel great about Jonathan Taylor in that position. And I think Dalton Kincaid is I've seen him tight end 3, 4. I feel like that's a little high. They still have some. Buffalo's loaded up on guys in this. They have all their guys are now in the interior. Even they're gonna try and play Keon Coleman outside, but I don't even think Keon Coleman's an out wide receiver. I think eventually he might move to the slot. You have a share there with a lot of people. I just don't know that Dalton Kincaid, and I like his ability, is gonna explode like we think he will. And there's a couple of guys below there, like Kyle Pitts, now that he has a quarterback for the first time. I think the talent is there. I think certainly Kincaid's behind your Laporta, Kelsey, even Trey McBride is a guy that people don't think about, but he's gets a ton of targets in Arizona, and Kyler Murray loves the tight end. So I don't love Kincaid as much as some.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I'm kind of with young Kincaid too. Also in the chat, Milwaukee's woke up. Big Red Dog better than May and Daniels. Maybe
Big Red Dog is the best QB in the league.
Maybe you should start him over Love. I think you should just start him. Why not? Start him over Love. He says Jacob's going to be a stud. I'm glad you weren't here earlier, because Scotty says otherwise. I
did ask if you were there at the time. I don't I don't like Jacobs at all. I think you downgraded at running back with Jacobs.
If you have to draft HN as your running back 1, is he a is he a do not draft for you? No, I think he was on one of my stud drafts lists that I think you probably should prioritize him. Like he's going a little higher this year than he ever has. But we actually talked at length about him in our other video, which, by the way, Marcus, go check out on our YouTube exclamation point. So a YouTube channel. He's on the studs list, so make sure you go check that out. Milwaukee, Scotty is foolish. Well,
yeah, I'm gonna get you the jersey. Rec, did you get your jersey? Where's Rec?
Did Rec get his?
Did you get it?
We're sending him out. You got to check your DMs, Milwaukee.
I have not. No, Milwaukee. I keep forgetting to. To be fair, that's not Milwaukee. That's on me.
Oh.
For Milwaukee, but he wants a love jersey, but he keeps talking about this big red dog guy. I might just send him a big red dog jersey.
Send him a Clifford jersey, or what is
Clifford with his face on it.
As far as A-Chain, like, he's very boomer bust, right? Like, which is not a bad thing in my mind. I like boomer bust guys a little bit, but he's small, he's undersized. He's going to be injury prone, I think. Can he take the full load? Because he's talented as hell. But, like, if he's able to do that and stay healthy all year, A-Chain's going to be a monster. It's just a matter of, like, the health. And does he get more goal line carries? Because Mostert had 137 touchdowns last year for no reason at all. So they're going to give him the ball a little more. But he's not big enough to just give him the ball. He just needs to play Denver every week.
If he plays Denver every week, they'll be in good shape. Then he'll have all the stats you'll ever need. Speaking of Denver, Javonte Williams is on my non-draft list.
Oh, yeah.
I think Broncos running backs in general. It's probably not in the best. It's not in your best interest to be drafting Broncos running backs. They especially, you know what's weird? I think it's not even just the running backs themselves. It's more of this is more about Sean Payton than it is like the running backs. Sean Payton, I feel like, I don't know how, like he was able to do like that double-headed monster in New Orleans, right? You know, he had, Kamara and what's his name?
Like Mark Ingram back in the day?
Ingram, yeah. Ingram and Kamara, and I mean like, they always split. You had one goal line running back, and you had Kamara, who's getting a lot of the in between the 20s, right? Like trying to get things rolling. You never had a go-to guy that stood out, and I mean with McLaughlin, P. Ryan, you got some of these other guys that are battling out for those other running back spots. Javonte is a guy that I'm just like he's supposed to be the starter. But I mean, he's finally 2 years removed from that ACL, so he'll probably be a little bit more, in a good spot from a health standpoint. But I don't know. I can't trust any running backs from Denver at this point. There's just not enough production.
Cuban's asking, are you saying the Broncos will be a major passing team? I think they'll be a major punting.
Passing, baby, passing. All over the field. Let's go.
Major punting team. Like, if punters were available in fantasy, punter one. And I don't even know who the punter is for the Broncos, but I'd take him number 1 overall.
Number 1 overall.
Can you imagine, like, you get, like, fantasy points for, like, length of punts and different things? Like, you could...
It's Riley Dixon.
Oh, he's a boy. So yeah, so don't touch running backs from Denver. Just leave them alone.
Milwaukee says with Peyton they are going to pass a lot. Plus they like. Do they like Knicks?
Are you kidding me?
Right now, from what I've heard, he's still. Zach Wilson's left the conversation, so he is out. They've gone from the 3-headed monster and Zach Wilson. What a career, right? Fizzled out and not in there. But right now he can't beat out Jarrett Stidham. It sounds like he's behind Jarrett Stidham, Chris.
I mean,
I'll say that
Jared
again. He's behind Jarrett Stidham.
is a juggernaut, you know? I mean, it's tough to beat out a juggernaut, you know?
He went to Jared, huh?
No. He I would be genuinely shocked if Bo Nix wasn't the starter week 1. I would be shocked. And
What
that
kind of odds will you give me on that?
well, and that would also be a testament of like, I mean, can you imagine Sean Payton taking Bo Nix, being as high as he is on Bo Nix, and not trying to coach him up and have him be the starter week 1? Like, I just feel he's everything. He's Drew Brees, right? He's the same. I'm just saying. We're a little off topic here with this one, but we'll get into more of these breakdowns as well. I just think he's got to be. He's got to be the starter. If he's not,
I'm hearing
if
Nix is the starter. He's not right now.
If Nix isn't the starter, then that is a failed draft pick, and that is a failed. Like you can't.
I mean,
you're putting all your chips in.
One of the more wild things you ever said, because I remember a guy that went number 10 overall as QB and didn't play his first season, and now is the GOAT, Chris.
But think about where we're at in Denver about the quarterback position and what this coach is tying to. He's tying his horse to this post, right? Is that the saying? Like,
but if he doesn't think that horse is ready, he shouldn't play him until he thinks he's ready. I'm not saying Bo Nix will start some games this year. I'm not saying he won't start any games. Is he week 1 starter? I don't know. Because
there's no
what happens if he
to tutor him?
What if he goes out and embarrasses himself week 1? Like, there's a part to, like, if he's not ready and you don't have a lot of talent offensively around you, no offense, like, is that like, there's the argument, are you setting him up for a bad situation where then he never is able to come out of it?
Well, you also got to look, and the CJ Stroud thing isn't helping the scenario in that instance of like, oh, if CJ Stroud can be this good coming out as a rookie, then I can have faith in. And again, you're comparing what CJ Stroud did was insane, and no one saw that coming. But anyways, we'll talk a little bit more of that down the line. So just we'll get into that. Last one on my list, and then I'll get to your guys's, and if you have any others last on your list. Cooper Kupp, right in the middle of the photo here. Cooper Kupp is a guy that I'm telling you, he's been fantasy gold in recent years, and I just think we're starting to run out of gas. We've gone to that well a little bit too much. Like, he was, based off of where he was picked last year, wasn't exactly what you would have wanted fantasy wise, where he, like, his average draft position. He missed 13 games in the last 2 seasons. He was held below 40 yards in 6 of 12 contests, managing single-digit fantasy points in 5 of those games. Like, he's kind of a boomer bust guy. And, like, he's a top 10 guy if he's healthy. If he's healthy, he's fantastic. I just don't know how healthy he can be moving down the stretch of, like, seasons. Like, I was thinking about it. He kind of reminds me of, like, a Mike Trout. Like, he's, like, so talented, so good, and injuries just kind of come in and, like, mess things up a lot. And I don't know. I don't know if I could rely on him week to week, given his injury history. So for me, I don't like that uncertainty. I'm kind of off Cooper Kupp. Also, Puka Nacua is there as well. But
the sensation that is Puka Nacua. Yeah, I mean, it depends on where you're grabbing him, right? I see him as, like, wide receiver 21 on this list that I'm looking at. I don't know if the upside's there, especially the age and injury. Milwaukee's asked, how much does Stafford have left in the tank? I think Stafford's the same guy he's been. Like, I haven't seen a decline in Stafford's arm strength, or that dude can still sling it. I don't have issues with Stafford at all. maybe that offensive line a little bit. I have issues with the offensive line in LA, which also leads to Cooper Cup, but there's only so many mouths to feed, and Puka quickly, all of a sudden, became the favorite of Matt Stafford in an instant once Cooper was out. So, that one makes sense to me.
Yeah. Cooper Cup. Doc.
Yeah, I mean, you have to take a look at it, and this is one of the bigger, more intriguing questions if you ask me of all fantasy football. Is Cooper Cup coming all the way back? Is he going to be the guy that we've relied on that everybody drafts? Like, yeah, Cup, everybody. I was doing a lot of research into him, and I've found that he's fully back and he's ready to go. So I take this with a grain of salt because we know what he did last year. We know he was with the injuries and stuff like that. The man still ended up with 95 targets. He had 59 receptions, 737 yards, and 5 touchdowns, which, on 95 targets, that's still a pretty decent stat line, all things considered what happened to him last year. But this year they have him providing 85 receptions, 1,000 yards, and 7 touchdowns. If you ask me, I would take that. That would be a good WR2 for my team. But obviously the injuries are a huge concern with him. Plus, like you said, his age, he's 31, not getting any younger, and you have Puka. So for me, he's a huge question mark, but I mean, I definitely agree with you that he's one that, unless he's there late, I wouldn't take him just because of the whole situation and everything that's going on with him. I think that he could have a bounce back year. I mean, it'd be very easy for him to have a bounce back year, considering he only had 59 receptions after we're used to being in the hundreds with him. So I think if he stays healthy, it'll be a decent shot, but that is a very big question mark. Plus, where he's at with Puka, I just think that's going to be, we're going to see a lower version of him moving forward.
Cup was great despite being physically unimpressive because Stafford locked on to him. Now that they have a better wide receiver, that's all she wrote, says Cuban.
Yeah, I think McVay's very good at creating plays for who he deems the number one option at wide receiver is. And if it's not Cooper Cup, that might eat into some targets and stuff because Puka Nacua is going to get a ton of run, and Puka Nacua might be too low at wide receiver 8. I don't know, because I still think Stafford will sling it around for sure.
Marcus, Cup, agreed. Glad I found your channel. You guys know your shit. Hey, appreciate that. Thank you, Marcus. Appreciate
Marcus.
That. Yeah.
Not to make you panic, but Puka got hurt at practice today.
No, I'm all in on Cup. give me Cooper Cup.
Cup
He's a
first round.
First round. Give me
180 targets.
Forget everything we just said. Cooper Cup is back on the radar.
We're back, baby.
We're back. Bring it back. Let's go.
Never mind. Wide receiver 1.
That changes everything. Marcus, go ahead, join the Discord. We're always talking sports in the Discord as well. Anyone else? Guys, hit that follow button. Marcus hit the follow button. He hit the Prime. He got his 3 months of Apple TV free for free. Just for going Prime and subscribing to the channel. You guys can do the same. Make sure you do that. Hit the follow button, though, while you're here, because we're live every Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday nights on Twitch. So love to see you back. All right. So what else? I think, Doc, you had a couple that you wanted to get to as well.
Yeah. So this one, being in Pittsburgh, from Pittsburgh, this one was one that we even discussed talking about on the last show. But our running back situation with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. Now, they're projected tier 4, 24th and 25th. Now, for me, each one brings something else to the table. Now, if you need somebody that can run the ball, you get Harris. You want somebody that can catch the ball, you get Jalen Warren. The problem is, we boasted our line to the fact that I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do. I'm assuming with Deontay being gone, we're going to run the ball more. But what they've done is they've also taken Patty Freiermuth and have moved him around the offense and actually put him in different locations. And this is going to affect in my opinion, how this offense is going to go. Jalen Warren is the X factor, if you ask me. We know what we can get out of Najee Harris. You know he's a workhorse. You know he's going to give you his best. He's looked sluggish. He's looked great. Too many question marks for me. If Jalen Warren continues to do what he did out of camp and continues to catch the ball, block well, and do what he's going to do, this backfield is already murky enough. But imagine what would happen if Jalen Warren takes over that backfield. And the problem with that is, are we going to be like the rest of the league and ride the hot hand, or are we going to go with the guy that runs the ball the best? And so for me, that's enough to put question marks and to stay away from my Steeler guys, from my running backs, because there's just too many questions in that backfield right now. Obviously we bolstered the line, but it's how well we can run the ball and how much is the new offense going to rely on getting the ball to the back out in space. Are we going to give him the screens? Are we going to run something more conservative versus aggressive? There's just too many questions for that offense right now for me to be confident in either Najee or Jalen.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting with Arthur Smith as the OC because he loves running the ball, and between Algier and Bijan they were pretty good. But he also hates first round draft picks, so there's that. I don't know. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I feel like Najee, his stock is down because he's been so bad year after year. He went from, for his rookie year, declined from running back 9 to 19 to 29. He's gotten progressively worse from a fantasy standpoint, and from a production standpoint. But part of me is his stock has gone down so far that I'm maybe could be of value later, but I'm still questioning that. I'm still questioning whether or not. There's a world maybe he finishes in the RB 15 to 17 range at the high end, maybe. I don't know.
And not even to mention our quarterback situation, because the two different contrasting styles in the quarterbacks, that's a whole nother story in itself. But Wilson being hurt, and then if it's Fields, that brings a whole different dynamic. So there's just so many question marks. That's why I'm staying away.
Well, and Russ likes to check down too.
I was gonna say my whole thing is if Russ is your starting QB, Jalen Warren as the passing option is gonna be clutch because Russ is gonna check that shit down a lot.
He did that a lot in Denver for sure.
May not go for a ton of yards, but you'll at least get, if you're in a PPR with Jalen Warren, if Russ is the starter, that's going to be a better option to me than Najee Harris. If it goes Justin Fields route, maybe then you're looking at Najee Harris. Rex says we're going to run the ball a lot, but are you going to run it effectively? And you're going to score touchdowns?
Right. And that in itself, what we're talking about, literally just under chops each one of the, they chop each other at the knees with that. So that's a major reason why I'm just staying away. Not necessarily that either one of them isn't going to be productive, but they just each which one are we going to do better? And I just don't know.
Yeah. SCG $240 million to be checked down Charlie, baby. Well, Pittsburgh's not paying him that. So that's Denver paying him.
We ain't paying that.
Yeah.
We are not paying that.
You guys have by the way, the Russell Westbrook, Russell Wilson, man, they're on some cheap deals right now. Not for Denver, at least, for Wilson, but they're on those little tiny contracts. Let's see, what else do we got? Sorry, I'm old. What's a Discord? It's a wild thing that exists out into in the earth. It's scientific. It's this weird.
I think he was being honest, and you're not explaining, Chris.
I
didn't know what Discord was until I started this nonsense.
No, Marcus. It's just a chat server. It's just a chat server that we all of our community can join in, and you can be a part of it. Create an account, and then you could just chat with us. We share memes. We talk about sports. We talk about breaking news in there when we're not live. So all you guys who are in the chat, you could go ahead if you want and click on that link that Rec threw out there in the chat, and you can there's a link. You have to create a quick account, but you could see all of our conversations. We have different categories. We have our fantasy football stuff out there. We have everything for contests that we do. So it's a great place to just have a little community, especially around sports. You sound like Kamala describing the cloud. There's some weird stuff on anyways, we're not getting into that.
But I've seen that exact clip. And yeah.
So let's recap a little bit. So we got the Steelers running backs, we got the Broncos running backs, do not touch. We got Cooper Kupp, Tua, Jonathan Brooks, Jordan Addison, CJ Stroud, Devin Singletary, Austin Eckler. We had Josh Jacobs. Anybody else we want to add to the list Marvin Harrison Jr. is another one.
Just call him Marvis
Harrison.
Marvis.
What was the other guy? Martavis Bryant. Martavis.
The Pittsburgh legend.
Yeah. See, old Martavis.
That was Martavius.
Martavius at the eus at the end. Okay, that's fair.
It's like a Y. Yeah. Y in there.
Guys, chat. Anybody else you guys have on your like? It could be like people who've burned you. Like anybody else on your list, throw it in the chat, and we could discuss them a little bit. If there's anybody that like you're like, man, I am not touching. Ooh, whoopsie on Scotty. I got it.
Scotty, I got one for you, Scotty.
I blew that one, but I remember him. He was good for like a season.
So that's
what about be an idiot. What about Tyler Lockett?
I don't feel like people. I mean, he's one of those guys that's not fun to draft because like been in the league for forever. So I think he's going to be available. A lot of times I argue to take Tyler. So I'm like, the guy's gonna be available, and he's not a sexy pick. He's not sexy by any.
He's on my boring list every year.
Obviously, you have DK Metcalf, but now you do have Jackson Smith and Jigba. Does he, progressing and take over that wide receiver 2 spot from Tyler Lockett? I don't know. I haven't really seen reports of Seattle out of camp at all. But Lockett, if nothing else, is like just reliable as hell.
He's
right, and I just asked that just because of the years he's getting to, and then with DK and Jackson Smith in front of him, I just was seeing if him at being WR50, the value is there, or if he's just a guy you're avoiding because of just the quarterback play or anything that has to do with anything else.
No, I if he's wide receiver 50, I think that's actually low.
I mean, Lockett.
I think he's probably better than that.
Every year, Chad, if you don't know, I put out my boring players that are productive. He's on it like every single year, and he's always pretty productive every single year. He's always putting up something. So, and then also someone else too, STG, well tuned into Seattle, says when DK loses his temper, Lockett is always there. See, you always can rely.
That's why I asked. I mean, yeah, it was just a genuine question because like I used to have him all the time, but I just know him coming into his 32 year. I just want to make sure the production is still there. That's all.
It has been thus far, and he's
right.
had no. I mean, he always healthy, never really injured throughout his career.
Sells a shit ton of houses. He's good at that.
Here's a fact for you guys. That was last year was the first year he was outside the top 30 wide receivers since 2017.
Yeah.
What about Deontay Johnson of Carolina? And then Rec also responded, he's draftable only because he's wide receiver 1 on the team. But that offense is not good.